This video is sponsored by the Scorched Basin Kickstarter by Homie and the Dude. Hi there, I'm the _Twig, and I like analysing game rules. It's been roughly a year since the 2024 PHB came out, so this seems like the perfect time to go back to the beginning and look at Origin Feats. I'm going to rank all of them and discuss why they're good or bad. You've probably seen something like this before, but my list is going to be a bit different. You see, unlike everyone who made a list when the book first released, I've had 12 months to think about it and see them in practice. Alert is not at the top of this list. In fact, I think that there are at least 3 other Origin feats that are better than it, unless your character and you as a player meet a few specific requirements to really unlock Alert's full potential. Furthermore, I will not be doing this ranking on a tier list or using something like a 5-star rating system. I'll be using this 2-dimensional grid. I'll be rating each Origin feat based on both how useful it is, between constantly useful to near worthless, and how accessible it is, between every character wanting it and it only being good on gimmick builds. Something like Magic Initiate is a very useful feat, but you probably wouldn't want it on a Barbarian. That doesn't have any synergy at all. Similarly, anyone can make good use of Skilled, but there are much better options which overshadow it, such as joining my Patreon. That's right, by supporting me you can become proficient in every single aspect of the game, not just skills. Genuinely, I'm always happy to help if anyone has any questions. Over the last month I've done an analysis of the Blood Hunter to help work out how it could be homebrewed to bring it up to par with the 2024 classes, and I've also written an easy reference Moon Druid guide which goes into even more detail than my video on the subject, complete with a step-by-step walkthrough for all of the different combos. Particular thanks to SK, Mark Rainbow, Biney, Jaleli, Precipice and Susan, who just won tickets to see a live performance by Beethoven. Okay, let's start right at the top with Alert. Great little feat this. Add your proficiency bonus to initiative and you can swap initiative with someone else in the party. That just makes it much more likely that you can go first in combat. Not going to downplay that at all, it's fantastic. The earlier you go, the more likely you are to take down the enemy before they can get an extra turn in. This helps preserve both HP and resources. And if you're a caster, then enemies are much less likely to be tangled up with your allies, so you can freely hit them with a hypnotic pattern or a fireball. It does have a few shortcomings though. First, a statistical shortcoming. Let's say that you're level 1 with +0 dex, and the enemy rolled 10 on their initiative. If you rolled a 14 on your die, then Alert did nothing. You would have won initiative whether you had it or not. If you rolled a 6, Alert also did nothing. You lost either way. Alert only helps you if you rolled an 8 or a 9. Or a 9 or a 10 if the DM is mean and has monsters win ties. Either way, it only actually does anything 10% of the time. They get slightly better as you level up and your proficiency bonus increases, and it's also more likely to trigger if there are several different monsters in combat, but it's still less than you'd probably think. The second problem is a table psychology issue. If you want to swap with someone to make yourself go first, that means that they have to go last. I know many players who simply wouldn't want to make that trade. They want to go first too. Finally, the third issue is to do with your build. If you're playing something like a paladin or a heavy armor fighter, you probably have -1 dexterity. You fundamentally aren't expecting to go first either way, and if the enemy has something like +3 and rolls well, it might even be impossible for you to beat them even with Alert. Now, even though it has those 3 issues, winning initiative is still incredibly strong. I can't say that every character wants it due to that third issue, but I think it's fair to say that 90% do. And realistically, I think that across a standard level 1 to 12-ish campaign, you're most likely to reach at least 20% activation due to the increasing proficiency bonus and there being multiple monsters in encounters, plus whenever you can swap with a party member or even something like a wizard's familiar. As such, I think it slots nicely into frequently useful on 90% of characters. But we're not actually done with Alert yet. If you noticed in the intro, I said that there are a few specific requirements to unlock its full potential. For some of these feats, I'll be giving them 2 rankings, one for the generic use of the feat, and a second for a more specific use which unlocks a more potent effect, but can only be done on certain characters. The requirements for unlocking Alert are that you must be playing a dexterity-based character, there must be another party member who you want to go first, and you must be willing, as a player, to go last. If you meet those 3 conditions, you can use Alert's special technique, Swapdown. The idea here is that you boost your initiative as high as possible by giving yourself the maximum possible modifier, finding a way to get advantage such as by hiding, and making sure that you are the first to go, as frequently as possible. Once you're first, you then turn to the party wizard who wants to drop a hypnotic pattern and swap with them, letting them go first and near guaranteeing that it goes off uninhibited. This is one of the most powerful support options in the game, due to being essentially free. And as such, I will now reveal that there is a 6th tier above constantly useful, build defining. There are some character builds which simply could not viably exist without a specific origin feat, and Swapdown alert is one of them. Only subclasses can meet the dexterity condition to effectively use it, but if you can, you should almost definitely take it. Build defining on specific classes. Our second origin feat is Crafter, and this is easily the hardest feat to place. The fast crafting feature is very much just a ribbon. If you really need a grappling hook, just buy one. They cost 2 GP. The main reason to take this is the fact that you get proficiency with 3 sets of artisan's tools. On tables where you have a lot of time to craft, this can potentially be mission critical. You could get so many good magic items which would be completely inaccessible without this feat. On tables where you have no downtime at all though, it's absolutely worthless. Not even near worthless, actually worthless. Finally, the discount feature is actually slightly better than it looks. This notably probably does work on most costly spell components. That Revivified Diamond isn't inherently magical, it's just used in the spell, so by having a crafter in the party, everything will become a little bit cheaper. That still leaves us with a problem though. Where do we place it? The power of Crafter is directly proportional to the amount of available crafting time. I could put it in occasionally useful for every character, but that feels misleading since it spans the entire usefulness spectrum and the accessibility is determined by the game, not the character. Ultimately, I decided that the fairest thing to do here was to cheat. I've already added a 6th tier to the usefulness spectrum, so let's add a 6th tier to the accessibility spectrum. Crafter goes in the Crafter tier and stretches all the way up and down. You will know if Crafter works for you, and if it does, take it. Now after those weird split and stretched feats, here's one that's a bit more normal. Healer. 2 features of this. First, you could use a Utilize action to allow someone to immediately spend a hit die, but they add your proficiency bonus instead of their constitution modifier. That means that it's both quicker than short resting, and also likely either on par or better than the classical short rest healing. Since it's not especially common for someone to have better than a +2 or a +3 constitution, you can even use this in combat as a pseudo cure wounds, either saving a spell slot or allowing a non-caster to do some healing. It also allows you to reroll 1s when healing people, but that's only a very minor increase, not worth valuing. I don't think that this is good on absolutely everyone. Warlocks, for example, get a lot more than just HP out of their short rests, and other characters really do not want to be giving up their actions in combat to heal people, so lose part of the benefit. Usage is also quite limited at low levels. I do think that most builds could make use of it, but I don't think that it's really better than the myriad of ways of grabbing cure wounds, outside of its ability to hyper-accelerate short rests. That can be important from time to time, and I think that that alone bumps it up from the outclassed tier. Healer goes in occasionally useful on 90% of characters. Right, you know what I said about Healer not being weird? Our next feat is Healer again, specifically on the Thief Rogue. Level 3, Thief gets Fast Hands, which lets them use the Healer feat's Utilize action as a bonus action. That makes it way better. If you're some kind of ranged thief, you can shoot the enemy whilst running around the battlefield and repeatedly healing your allies. I don't think that it's on the level of something like Swapdown Alert, especially since there are many other good bonus actions, but having such a readily available and cheap source of healing is honestly brilliant, and actually an incredibly fun and different way to play the rogue. I'm putting Thief Healer in frequently useful for specific builds. Now then, Lucky. When I was very new to D&D back in 2014, I thought that Lucky was the most broken thing. Oh god.
Cat!
I have just broken my glasses.
Clover should have a spare pair backstage.
Right, give me a minute.
Hey Cam, don't you think this is going smashingly?
Shut up, Mike.
Oh, I found this cool desert punk themed Kickstarter.
Desert Punk? You mean like Dune and Mad Max?
Yeah, it's called the Scorched Basin by Homie and the Dude.
Let's have a look.
It looked like it was system agnostic, so you could slot it into any game, or even just use it as one region in your larger world. There we are. Go over here, Cam.
Ooh, nice buggy. Is that a sandworm? Yeah, that art's sound. Oh, it also says that there's no AI at all. It's 100% human made.
Yeah, it also comes with its own soundtrack and 3D printable models. And throughout it there are QR codes where over 100 TTRPG content creators like D&D Shorts, Indestructiboy and Davy Chappie have contributed voiceover lines. Actually, I think Twig did some lines for the Cry-Clad Knights.
I am a Cry-Clad Knight, the highest rank of warrior in the Kai dynasty. Beyond the walls is an arid wasteland populated by death and criminals. You do not want to go there.
Wait, what? No way was that, Twig.
Yeah, there's more of them.
My spear belongs to the Emperor, and it obeys his commands. So should you.
Mike, you have got to be lying to me. That sounds nothing like Twig.
No, Cam, I'm serious. It's literally my job to record Twig's voice.
Okay, that's wild. When does this thing come out? Oh, the Kickstarter is actually already open and is running until the 9th of October. Looks like if you pledge all the way up to the highest all-in metal tier, you can get a hardcover book, PDF, Roll20 conversion, a set of custom themed dice, and a metal poster, among some other things as well.
Yeah, Homie and the Dude also have a revenue share scheme, so if you use this QR code or the referral link to pledge to the Scorched Basin, us here on the_Twigs channel will get a 50% split.
Oh, looks like they've found those spare glasses. Let's get back to work. Okay, does this look good, Cam? Aye, that's class. Right, good. We were just at Lucky, right. Tex, can you roll the teleprompter back a bit? Okay, ready.
Take 4. Action.
Now then, Lucky. When I was very new to D&D back in 2014, I thought that Lucky was the most broken thing ever. It was a very good feat back then, but definitely not quite as good as I thought. It's had a big nerf going into 2024, which I think is honestly probably deserved, especially since it's an Origin Feat, and it now gives you a number of luck points each day equal to your proficiency bonus, which you can either use to give yourself advantage on any d20 test, or give an enemy disadvantage when they attack you. You have to declare it before the roll now, which means it's nowhere close to the heights of 2014, but it's still just incredibly good. Rolling a d20 is probably the single most frequently performed game action in the entirety of D&D. You will roll hundreds, if not thousands of d20s throughout a campaign, and you can give yourself advantage on any of them. It's only a limited number of times per day, but you can easily find a few important rolls to use your points on. In particular, it's actually quite hard to get advantage on most saving throws, and you can also use Lucky to give yourself advantage on initiative. That is an ability check. On average, that's approximately a plus 3.8 bonus, better than Alert until 9th level. You can also use it out of combat on those really important skill checks, and if you're very low on HP, even that disadvantage isn't awful, especially because it doesn't use your reaction, so you can also use something like Shield. It's just got infinite applications which literally everyone can use. The only thing holding it back is that proficiency bonus times per day clause. I unfortunately can't say that it's constantly useful, but it will definitely sit comfortably in frequently useful for every character. As far as I'm concerned, on a generic character, Lucky is a top 3 feat, and I think it's been heavily underrated by the community. Right, we're well and truly into the good ones now, because the next one is Magic Initiate. Pick either Cleric, Druid, or Wizard, and you learn 2 cantrips and a first level spell, and can choose which mental stat you use to cast them. You also get 1 free daily cast of the first level spell, and you can swap out one of the spells every time you level up. So this is kind of inherently split into 3 different feats, Cleric, Druid, and Wizard. First, you almost never want to pick your own class, and it's also very rare that you want to pick it at all if you're not a caster. That pretty much immediately slots all 3 versions into the specific classes category. Now let's look at what you can get from each one though. Wizard is probably the easiest to discuss, since its primary use is to give shield to classes that normally can't learn it. I personally am also a big fan of grabbing Find Familiar instead though, especially if you're a small species like a gnome. If you want to know more about Deer Battlefield Supremacy, I have a video about all sorts of neat stuff that you can do with Find Familiar. It's not just the owl spell. Other options like Tasha's Hideous Laughter and Jump do exist, but they are much more niche than Shield and Find Familiar. On the cantrip end of Wizard, there are several nice options including Blade Ward, True Strike, or any of the M trips. Tons of versatility. Depending on what you pick up with it, it can be useful both in and out of combat, and it can potentially fill your reaction slot. This is going straight into constantly useful for specific classes. Cleric probably has even more good options than Wizard though, such as Cure Wounds or Healing Word to put healing on your Sorcerer, or you could grab Shield of Faith or even better Sanctuary to defend an ally. At low levels, Bless is one of the most powerful spells available, and once you level up a bit and get better concentration spells, you can swap your Bless into the single best control spell in the entire game, Command. Command is absolutely bonkers, entirely due to it being both a first level spell and not using concentration. It is insanely spammable and incredibly versatile. I don't want to turn this into a dedicated command video right now though. I'm keeping that in my pocket. On the cantrip end, the obvious one is Guidance. plus 1d4 on everyone's skill checks for all time is obviously great. But if you are specifically a charisma based class, it's also worth taking Thaumaturgy, because it got a pretty interesting buff in 2024 and now gives advantage on intimidation checks. Magic Initiate Cleric can have healing, defense, control, and is even useful out of combat. I'm going to let this one shore the wizard spot, and also sit in constantly useful for specific classes. The last version is Magic Initiate Druid. Now as a class, I think that Druid almost entirely eclipses the Cleric. They can do almost everything a Cleric can do, but better. If we're looking at specifically the cantrips and first level spells though, they have nothing even approaching command, and most of their other best first level spells are actually shared with the Cleric. You can take Cure Wounds with this feat, but so can Magic Initiate Cleric, and they get to swap into command at higher levels when it becomes busted and spammable. The only notable unique firsts that the Druid has are Goodberry and Speak with Animals, which are far more niche than the Cleric and Wizard options. Again on the cantrips, Guidance is already on the Cleric list. There can be some interesting combos with Thorn Whip, but it's niche at best. Having Cure Wounds and Guidance is still very nice though, and there may be a reason for wanting the Jump Guidance combo, which is only on the Druid. So I think I'm still comfortable putting this in frequently useful for specific classes, just a step below Wizard and Cleric. I do however have one more split to talk about here. Magic Initiate Druid with Shillelagh. If you are playing a melee character who also has a high mental stat, such as a Paladin, a Ranger, or a Valor Bard, taking Magic Initiate Shillelagh can allow you to focus entirely on that mental stat, requiring far less investment on your strength or dexterity, if any at all. That can help you boost your spellcasting modifier, your Aura of Protection, your Primal Companion, or whatever other feature you have. Effectively, this feat makes your build single ability dependent. I'll also remind you that you can get Guidance and Cure Wounds for free on top of Shillelagh. Now it's not without flaws. Shillelagh only works on the Quarterstaff and the Club, which aren't the greatest weapons in the game. They don't have a ton of feat support unfortunately, so your damage will almost certainly suffer from using a Shillelagh build. But it is pretty much the only way that you can get some of these builds to work, and you could also still use a shield. That puts it all the way up in build defining for specific builds. Okay, Musician. Every time you rest you can give Heroic Inspiration to a number of party members equal to your proficiency bonus. That's proficiency bonus rerolls of anything ever, after seeing the results on the dice every short rest. Absolutely incredible. Now, this is very comparable to Lucky, so let's compare it. First, the Heroic Inspiration reroll happens after you see the results on the dice, whereas Lucky's advantage has to be declared first. Point to Musician. Second, it gets spread around the party, rather than all stacks being on you. That means that with Musician, everyone can reroll their bad initiative, but with Lucky you can get advantage on initiative and then get advantage on a saving throw. This one is tricky to call, they both have advantages, so I'm calling this one a draw. Third, we have more of a mentality point. Musician only giving each person one use has the effect of making players want to hoard it. It's a classic case of, but what if I need it later syndrome, and it's accentuated because it's spread across so many different people. It's very likely that there will be at least one person on your table who will just cling onto their Heroic Inspiration for dear life, or just forget about it. This is a fairly major downside which is not found in Lucky, and I think that gives Lucky a point. That means that our tiebreaker is the fact that Lucky recharges on a long rest, but Musician recharges on a short rest. This is the primary reason why I put Lucky in frequently useful for every character, and why I'm putting Musician in constantly useful for every character. If you are short resting twice per day, you triple the uses available, but it's insanely close. I can definitely see characters or tables where you would prefer Lucky over Musician, or even take them both on a human or a warlock. Right, not a split out one, but a cool tech you can do with Musician. Normally you cannot give Heroic Inspiration to yourself, but if there's a party member who already has Heroic Inspiration, maybe because they're a human or because they didn't use it since the last time you rested, you can give Heroic Inspiration to them again, and because they can only have one Heroic Inspiration at a time, they can give it back to you. Fun little workaround. Now let's see the quality jump off a cliff. Savage Attacker. Once per turn you can get, quote, advantage on a weapon's damage dice. This does not give you advantage to your sneak attack dice, it does not give you advantage on your spite dice, you can't apply it to Frenzy or Hunter's Mark, it only works on your Great Axe's 1d12. Absolute best case scenario, this is about +1 damage per round, and it never gets better. There is a tiny niche here. If you are trying to get the maximum possible DPR at low levels, Savage Attacker does help. Going from about 15 to about 15.9 is not worth an Origin feat though. This is near worthless for gimmick builds, the absolute lowest grading I can possibly give. Okay, Skilled. You get 3 proficiencies with skills or tools. Incredibly basic, absolutely everyone can use more skill proficiencies. This can really help you round out your character. Unfortunately, each additional skill proficiency kind of gives diminishing returns. Once you have the ones from your primary stat, plus maybe perception and stealth, additional skills really aren't doing all that much for you. Additionally, for a lot of skills like nature or persuasion, you probably only need one person in the party to have proficiency. The extra skills are nice, but after you have 5 or 6 proficiencies, getting more isn't actually all that useful, especially when you could be taking either Lucky or Magic Initiate and grab Guidance. I wouldn't fault you for taking Skilled, but unfortunately I think it has to go on Outclassed for every character. Except, Skilled has a secret ultimate technique, which is only available under very specific conditions. That's right, a feat as simple as Skilled is getting a split, and it's not the one that you think it is. I'm not going to start telling you to get proficiency in every skill, that's stupid and pointless. You see, Skilled doesn't just let you get skill proficiencies, it also gives tool proficiencies. That means that you can pick something like Sleight of Hand and Thieves' Tools to get advantage on picking locks. And that's also not the split that I'm going for, because it's still not worth bumping up from Outclassed on every character. Let's say that you're in a campaign with a lot of downtime. You take the Crafter feat, right? Wrong. When you take Crafter, you can only pick your tools from this list. That means that it cannot give you Jeweler's Tools to craft rings, Alchemist supplies to craft potions, or Calligrapher's supplies to craft scrolls. Skilled can. Skilled for tools goes in build defining in the Crafter tier. Crafter, crying and seething, beaten at its own game. On a more serious note, getting a mixture of skills and tools is probably the best way to use Skilled. As I said, I don't think that it moves the standard use out of Outclassed, but getting Thieves' Tools or a Disguise Kit or something with your 7th proficiency just to give yourself advantage does make a lot of sense. Next up, Tavern Brawler. This one has 4 features, however I can't think of a good use for improvised weaponry, so I'm going to ignore it. The remaining 3 features all relate to unarmed strikes, so that counts out pretty much everything except for the Monk, Dance Bard, and characters with the unarmed fighting feat. Reminder that wild shape attacks are not unarmed strikes. Enhanced unarmed strike is then redundant with all of those, so it may as well not exist. That means that Tavern Brawler actually only has 2 features. You can reroll 1s on unarmed strike damage, and that's worth about 0.3 damage per attack. Almost nothing, resulting in everything riding on that last feature, Push. This says that when you hit someone with an unarmed strike using the attack action, so it doesn't work with flurry of blows or opportunity attacks, you can push them 5 feet away, with no save. This is mostly used as a way to pseudo-disengage, allowing you to play a Skirmisher Monk. The problem is that Elements and Open Hand already have a push, allowing them to do this without spending their Origin feat. And Shadow's Darkness prevents opportunity attacks outright because the enemy can't see. And if you can get a weapon mastery somehow, then the Great Club can be used as a monk weapon with the push mastery. There is one interesting thing that you can do with both Tavern Brawler and Crusher, which results in the enemy falling 10 feet every turn, so taking an extra 1d6 and landing prone. But it's very niche and already replicable by other means. Unfortunately, that means that Tavern Brawler has to go in Outclassed for specific classes. Okay, last one, Tough. Plus 2 HP every level. It's ridiculously simple. There is nothing flashy that you can do with it. In fact, you probably won't notice it at all. The more I play D&D 24, the more builds I make, and the more I analyse these rules, the more impressed I am with Tough. It is incredible. Let's say that you're a wizard with plus 2 con. That's pretty standard. Tough increases your level up HP by 33%. It puts you roughly on par with the fighter. Even if you're a barbarian with plus 3 con, it's still a 20% increase, but you also have rage. I estimate the rage is worth about 50% extra HP, so in reality it's plus 3 HP per level, not plus 2. Think about how often you have been knocked unconscious by an attack which did maybe 5 more damage than you had. The number of times that I've seen someone get an extra turn off because of Tough is insane. Way back at the beginning of the video, I said that Alert can give you an extra turn in maybe 10 to 20% of combats. Tough gives you an extra turn in probably 20 to 30%, maybe more at some tables. Tough was a feat that people would take at level 16 or 19 in 2014 when it had no ability score and meant giving up one of the other completely busted 2014 feats. Now it's an Origin feat. I will say, however, not everyone wants it. There are some builds like the Moon Druid that can get truly ridiculous amounts of temp HP, and there's some fun stuff you can do with the Eldritch Invocation Gaze of Two Minds, where you can participate in combat whilst in total cover. But I am completely comfortable in saying that Tough is constantly useful for 90% of characters. This is the third part in my trinity of top 3 Origin feats, alongside Musician and Lucky. I'm not 100% set on an order for all of them, and I don't think that it especially matters because each will have its preference, but these 3 are my absolute go-tos. However, there is one more thing that I would like to add to this ranking grid. As simple as Tough is, it too has a secret hidden effect. Let's say that you want to play something like a Monk Warlock multiclass. There's some very interesting stuff that you can do with that, but unfortunately you need at least 13 in Dexterity, Wisdom and Charisma, preferably more like 14, 14, 17, as well as some Constitution so you don't die to a strong breeze. Maybe it's a Wizard Cleric for heavy armor, cure wounds and command, in which case you need 15 strength, 13 wisdom and 17 intelligence, as well as that Constitution. Or maybe you just can't stand the idea that your bard has less than 14 intelligence. In these situations, Tough doesn't read you get plus 2 HP. Tough reads sacrifice plus 1 to your con saves to get plus 1 HP, and more importantly, plus 3 to your point buy. There are certain characters who simply would not be viable without Tough. They couldn't get the stats. For the case of heavily multiple ability score dependent characters, Tough becomes build defining for gimmick builds. And that there is my completed ranking. Probably quite a bit more detail than you may have seen in the past. If you're new here, welcome to my brand, and consider subscribing or sharing this with your friends. And if you want to know more about all of the fun stuff that you can do with unarmed strikes, including the details on that Tavern Brawler Crusher combo, here's a video for you. Bye!